Hey, welcome, welcome to. That caught me by surprise. Um, anyways, uh, Chris, why don't you do the welcome? I mean, I welcome us in every time, and
You
I,
do
no, I
such
don't
a
mind doing it, but I just was like, you know what? Let's give you a shot. If you suck at it, I'm taking over again next week.
That's fair. You are really good at it. But welcome everybody to Academy 99, where Brad and I discuss what it takes to be in the top 99th percentile of human existence. Not just business, but physical, mental, emotional health. We want to be top tier in all that we do. And so that's what our conversations are about.
I am never doing the intro again. That was freaking fantastic. I'm never doing it again. Hope that wasn't too loud. Let me get up here
Of
close.
course.
There we go. Oh wow, that was good. That was good. You didn't go into like podcast
Thanks, man.
voice. It's great.
That was my podcast voice.
That was really good, man. So you can do intros from now on. Diving in today, I do love this theme. I love this theme. Myth busting.
Yep.
I don't know if you ever watched Mythbusters.
It's one
There's
of the best
something
shows.
about it that my brain just totally hooks into. So anytime someone talks about a myth, it's like, oh, something that was perceived to be widely spread, known as truth. And as it turns out, it isn't.
Right.
But let's talk about myths about elite performance, high achievement, and reaching ridiculous goals.
Yeah.
Speaking of being in that 99th percentile. And
Yeah.
one of the ones that is, it's not a pet peeve. It's of massive interest to me because I think I struggled with this for a long time. And that is the concept that in order for an achievement to be valid, to be worth it, I've got to do it on my own. And so I'll just pause right there. That's a myth.
Yeah. Agreed. I think it's so widely maybe spread or believed because there's something like almost mythical about, fighting and beating the dragon on your own, or climbing the mountain and summiting the highest peak on your own. That it is kind of appealing. The idea of everybody was against you, the world was against you, and you were able to, stand against the world essentially and come out on top. I think there's something appealing about that. But in reality, it just doesn't work that way.
In story, it's appealing.
Yeah.
But it's, as you're saying those things, all accurate. Like there's something really appealing about it. And then also accurate, it's not reality. But
Right.
even when we look at story, the greatest stories, the person is not on their own.
Right.
And stories that are told really well, you really begin to see why people are on their own. And all of it starts to unfray and unravel like a Weezer song about sweaters. It just all falls apart.
Yeah.
The reason I think people want to do it on their own is not because I'm so great and this is what a great story is. It's I'm so scared of people seeing me for who I really am. And if they saw me the way I see me, they wouldn't want to be a part of my life. Like to really cut it to the bone.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think the desire to pursue things solo is in some regard fear-based. I remember, like, during selection, my favorite part of selection was the land navigation portion. You're you're walking around in the woods, orienteering. Yes, yeah, you've got a
Did they
map.
call it that, or did
No,
they stop calling it that?
they just called it land nav, and
Huh.
your goal was with a map, a compass, and your pace count, find a small point in the middle of the wilderness at night, alone in the dark with no flashlight. And
Yeah.
and admittedly, that was my favorite time of selection. And I've said this a lot. It was my favorite time because, one, I didn't have to rely on anyone else. But I think part of it was also, if I messed up, I didn't
No one's going to
I
see.
no one's going to see. I didn't let
Yeah.
anybody down. You know what I mean?
Ooh, that's a big one. That's a big one.
Yeah.
All right. So before we get into the unfray and the mess and go too far deep into that, which is totally worth doing, let's get back to it. There's a lure to doing it on my own, particularly to your point of like not being seen as letting anyone down. I still think it's preservation about how we're seen, but we'll get into that.
Yeah.
So there is this almost sense of it isn't real unless I do it on my own, or I didn't really accomplish something unless I do it on my own. And it is fascinating. There is just on the surface the shiny, I did it my way. If you as a wrestler, like the majority of my athletic career was individual sports. I played 1 year of football. Wrestling, it was all you. No one else is on the mat when you're on the mat. Now, it's not all you, but no one else is on the mat. You're the one who has to execute. Same with I played tennis in college. I'm the one who had to execute. Nobody else could execute for me. No one was going to come save me. And there is a truth to, there is a portion of our accomplishments, and it's, I don't know what I would say, what portion it is, what percentage it is, but there's a portion of it that is all on our shoulders in terms of execution.
Yeah.
Which is fine. That's why we train to standard. To borrow a famous phrase from, I don't know if you've ever heard of Christopher Douglas Lee. He's got a book coming out, by the way. That's real.
Yeah.
But nothing is on its own. No one accomplishes anything great on their own. And if you want to screw in a light bulb, you can do that all by yourself. Although I'll make the argument that somebody else had to build that light bulb for you. You didn't do it from scratch. If you really wanted to do it on your own, right?
Right.
Which would be actually, I'd watch that YouTube cut if they kept it to under 4 minutes. But screwing a light bulb, yeah. Win a gold medal, no. Even in an individual sport,
Right.
And the truth that the moral of the story is, yeah, there's lots of things you can do on your own, but they aren't great. They just aren't great things. And if you're going to do something great, like change decades of behavioral patterns in your own life,
Right.
I mean, that in of itself is a huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
You're not going to do that on your own.
No.
You're just not going to do that on your own. There's going to be a host of people in your corner. And so I'd love for us to kind of talk through that. So if somebody who already has a pretty decent level of success is trying to get into that 99th percentile, and the thing that's holding them back is reticence to ask for help or bring along allies, then this will be beneficial to them.
Yeah, agreed. And a phrase came to mind, which is, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Right. And I think there's truth to that. Like, if you want to make some, back to my land nav analogy, like I could move at my own pace when I was running through the woods. I didn't have to wait for anybody. I could just take off. But
and you don't have to ask for permission or get agreement. Yeah.
Right. It's just like, yeah, the committee was me, and I agreed, and so I just.
And you're the head of it. You're the head of the committee,
right? a similar land nav story when we were in Estonia doing Estonian SEER school. Um, we were putting teams, and you had to. We were walking across Estonia through the swamps of Estonia while being chased by the Estonian army, and it was a big
Zero
training
interest in
exercise.
that. I've got zero interest in that, by the way.
It it was not fun. It just wasn't great, and I mean the mosquitoes were were huge and just swarming you. And I started smoking cigarettes just to keep the mosquitoes out of my face. But we were in teams, and we were moving pretty serious distances every single day. But I had walked holes into my feet because I was a dummy. Walked through a stream, my feet got wet. I didn't change my socks immediately, and I got blisters. And then the training exercise started, and so we had to walk across Estonia, and I'm on the struggle bus. Uh, I don't think I could have gotten to where I was supposed to go if I didn't have my team around me. Um, they were they were essentially taking care of all the land navigation, plotting our routes, figuring out where we were gonna bunk down for the day because we were moving at night and sleeping during the day. And bunking down was really like we found an abandoned tree stand that was enclosed, and we slept in there. At one point we just crashed in some dude's backyard, and his dogs woke us up later in the day. But
Pop, pop.
but yeah, yeah, right. It got a little squirrely, but my point is, like, the difference between selection um, and the Estonian experience was selection. I was on my own. I was uh, peak physical condition. I was just ready to go, and I could take off running through the woods. In Estonia, I was on the struggle bus, and I couldn't. I don't think I could have done it on my own. And so having those guys around me to support me as we moved was paramount in our success. And so, kind of back to my point, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together, because everybody brings strengths to a certain situation, or whatever. Or maybe you're just not at 100%, and you just need the support. Doesn't mean you're dead. It just means you're just not firing on all eight cylinders, and you need somebody to back you up.
Yeah, 100%. Which I'm tired of saying and hearing other people say 100%. I'm going to try to drop that from my vocabulary, but it feels like it's just routine. One of the things I learned, I spent some time studying with Dr. Jeff Spencer. I don't know if you're that familiar with him, but he was an Olympic competitor, Olympic coach. He's known for building champions. He was an Olympic cyclist, basically. When he was like 21, he competed, and then fell in love with helping other elite performers. And so he's spent his lifetime doing this, and he has a whole goal setting course. Interesting snapshot behind the scenes when I worked with him is when people are building their teams to accomplish a great thing, like winning an Olympic medal.
Right.
You've got so many allies, and there are all kinds of slots that you put them into. It's like you've got your you refer to it as sort of like your corner coach, and then your cut coach, and then you've got your inner circle, and then you've got sponsors. And so many people are involved in winning an Olympic medal. It's a little mind boggling. And the amount of connection that they have, and the amount of support and accountability that's built in to this person who already has incredible drive, like the highest standards of drive. We both know someone who has Olympic aspirations, and that kid, his discipline and his drive is off the
Yeah.
charts for
Yeah.
that, attaining that goal.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I don't know that I've had that drive that level of drive for anything other than being a good dad. But
Right.
you're just not doing it alone, to your point, with
Yeah.
Estonia and everything going
Yeah.
on. Not to mention, like, if you aren't a part of a team, you're a loser. I mean,
Yeah.
it sounds rough, but that's what I believe.
Yeah.
Smarter people than me might argue with me, but they'll be wrong. If you aren't a part
Yeah.
of a team on the great things you're trying to do, you are a loser because you are not going to achieve. You are not going to accomplish. It is not
Yeah.
going to happen. And I think for me, why this is like a pet interest of topic of conversation is because for a long time I excluded myself from being a part of a team, even though I already was in
Yeah.
areas of my life a part of a team. I was eschewing them because I don't know. I didn't want to
Right.
be truly seen. I didn't want to be seen as a weak link for sure. And
Yeah.
when that is priority, you are the weak link, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or there's a high probability that you're the weak link. But I'll pause right there.
Yeah. When you said that if you're not a part of a team, you're a loser, uh, there's even something in me that was like, oh yeah, I'll show you. uh, and I anticipate some folks that may listen to this will be like, well, I'm going to prove Brad and Chris wrong, and I'm going to go do it on my own. And so my pushback then is, if what is more important to you, achieving all the things that you want to achieve, or proving us wrong that you can do it by yourself? Because one is based in like results, and one is based on ego, and um, and I think those are two different goals. If you
Yeah.
want to prove, if your goal is to prove that you can do it all by yourself, that is that is different, and you're going to approach it way different than I want to achieve this particular goal. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then I call into question. I think there are times, very specific times, when that's okay and
Yeah.
possibly even worthwhile. The
Yeah.
immediate question I have is your desire to prove to yourself and to others that you can do something on your own. Is that hurting your team still? Because you're still a part of a team.
Right.
My
Right.
immediate team, is you and a couple other friends. My
Yeah.
daughters are like on the inner circle, and my
Mm-hmm.
fiance are part of that inner circle. You're part of that inner circle, and then I've got other rings of circles there's other teams I'm a part of. But if my
Yeah.
desire to accomplish something on my own is detracting from the well-being of the entire team and the accomplishments our entire team has,
Yeah.
then again, you're being a bad teammate. Or
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't like the terms good or bad, but you're being an ineffective teammate. How about that?
Yeah. Yeah. Great way to put it.
You know?
For sure. Yeah.
Um, but for sure, like when I said it, I was questioning, like, oh, why don't I like hearing that come out of my own mouth? But I do believe fundamentally it's true. Like if you aren't a dedicated member of a team, one, you're alone and lonely, and maybe you like that. And I would say you need to do some self-reflection of why you like to be so alone. It's probably not why you think. And two, you're still a loser. And I'm not saying like, listen, the people that we help aren't alone and they aren't losers.
Right.
But there's this vestige of holding on to, and I do think it does get back to, your land nav analogy. It does get back to, I don't want people to see me the way I see me, which is
Yeah.
a mindset issue for sure.
Mhm.
But I can't remember if I talked about this before. on this podcast, but when before my divorce, we were going to couples counseling. And one morning I woke up and I journaled, and that's when it dawned on me. And this is the first time I realized, oh, I need to ask people for help. And I also realized how insecure I was. I was just journaling, and I ended up writing a letter to my counselor and my, wife at the time. And it was basically, here's why I hide, and here's why I put up a facade. Because I can't imagine that anyone would actually see who I really am and want to be with me. And I'm afraid if I'm really honest and I really show who I am, game over altogether. And for me, that was such a huge revelation to myself.
Right.
Like, that was insight at the time that was just like, oh, this is from beyond, and it was a game changer, and one I have to continually remind myself, because my ego's always here. Fear never goes away. It just comes up in other forms. And I still have to remind myself that today. I've got other examples of that in my life, like when I was like, hey, okay, I'm going to get real about my financial IQ. Was, the breakdown I had, was tremendous. Allowing other people to see my bank account and have access to my bank account and help me with it.
Right.
It was paralyzing. So there's other instances of that. But the point is, some people want to do great things. They've already committed. They know their purpose, and they've casted the vision for their future.
Yeah.
And one of the strands that feels like way more than a strand is this idea that there are some of these things that I can't ask help for.
Yeah.
And it'll paralyze you.
Yeah. When we trained CQB, which is just clearing houses and stuff like that, there's a couple of principles you always followed. One, never clear a room by yourself, because when you cross the threshold, your back is exposed to something. You need somebody there to protect your back as you enter the room, right? The other thing is, whenever you came across somebody that was potentially combative or something, and you were handling it, you would call out for support. You would yell support to let everyone else in the room know that there is an issue that you're dealing with. You weren't trying to hide that issue from other people and say, no, I got this all myself, because the desired end state is mission accomplishment, not to show how badass you are. You know what I mean? And so letting the people that you trust the most around you know what you're dealing with and what is going on right in front of you lets them, one, have situational awareness of what's going on within the room itself. But once their jobs in the room are done, and everybody is relatively safe, they come support you to ensure that mission accomplishment is met. And asking for support is so vital in mission accomplishment. And yes, that is a metaphor for everything.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Well, one of the things that really stands out to me there is, yes, you're asking for support for the issue you're dealing with immediately, but the entire team's dealing with that issue. If you're clearing an entire house, if you fall, now there's blind spots for other people. And, it does. I don't know why I love this analogy from 300 of, if you can't cover, from ankles to shoulder, the person that's on your team, then you're the weak link, or you're a weakness to them, not just to yourself. That stands out. But I think here's a more positive way to say that. If you aren't asking for help, then mission accomplishment becomes more difficult. not just for you, but for your whole team. You know,
Right.
and so when we're working with people, almost every one of my clients is in a family unit and they have family goals. And almost every one of my clients, their career is not more important than their family.
Yeah.
And it's important, don't get me wrong, and for who they are as people, you know, men or women, you know, they love their career, but they also love their family. So getting help and asking for help on a regular basis, ongoing support and accountability is critical. And that's not just, that isn't like just like, so get a mentor, get a coach, you know, that is building that into your life. Now, there are times when you need a mentor or a coach for sure.
Yeah.
But there are some things a friend can do that a coach can't do, just like there's some things a coach can do that a friend can't do in terms of being that support. Same thing with a spouse. And oftentimes, what I find is people are trying to prove to other teammates that they're worthy.
Right.
And if that teammate doesn't honor, love, and respect them for who they are, then they're reticent to show their soft underbelly. They're too busy trying to prove their worth.
Right.
And there's a conversation to be had there too, because
sure.
we have to have our values. And if our actions continually we aren't showing up in that area, then we really need help.
I mean, yeah.
From that friend
Absolutely.
and from outside.
Right. And I think that begins with, how do I put this? Never being satisfied with your own weaknesses or your own shortcomings, but acknowledging that that's part of who you are, and that's just who you are. It doesn't mean you can't work on it. It doesn't mean you can't grow and progress through it. But if that's where you are, acknowledge it. Don't try to hide it.
Yeah.
If you're constantly keeping people at arm's length, because they might see who you really are, then you're just faking it. And I'm not sure that that's the best way to go through life is with a mask on. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm sure it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, there's so much you can do. You can build so much. You can come up with a strategy to eliminate the weakness to a certain degree, and then build support structures, habits, rituals, daily routines, different ways of thinking, different ways of processing, different ways of framing people in your life. And this is where accountability, which I used to hate that word just because of my faith background, but different forms of accountability and support to be able to continually be an awareness of the weakness area and deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
It won't necessarily eliminate the weakness. I know my proclivities, and some of my proclivities are not going away. Some of my tendencies and what, my shiny object syndrome stuff won't ever go away. But I can have a strategy and do enough reflection to be so aware of it that I can counter for it. So an example would be, I am never going to have the speed of someone else. And so with a particular mission, that might be a weakness that's never going away. So I've got to do what I can do to raise that floor. Even if I just raise it a few notches on the old volume button, right? Even if I just raise it from a 5 to a 7, what percentage of leverage and influence does that have on the outcome?
Right.
And so it's okay that's a weakness, but if I can limit the detriment of that, it's great for the team and great for the mission.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. And you spoke a little bit about accountability just a second ago, and I can't remember if it was in The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy or The 12-Week Year by Brian Moran. Either way, they discuss accountability, and their take on it is, in reality, only you are accountable to yourself. You aren't accountable to somebody else. And so after having read that, I kind of rephrase it to the people in your circle, the people around you that you trust. They're the ones to help hold you to the standard that you've set for yourself. And maybe that's just semantics. Maybe that's just another way of saying accountability. But it, like if I'm trying to be a bodybuilder and I tell you about it, you don't really get affected if I don't meet that goal. But if I tell you about it, you help hold me to the standard that I've set for myself. Like, hey, Chris, have you eaten all of your calories today, or have you lifted? So it's ultimately that in that particular goal. Like, I'm the only one that's affected by it if I don't do it.
Yeah, and the level of release of anxiety that comes with, hey, Brad, I'm struggling to hit my calories today. Let's talk about it for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's all that's needed to just have that little breakthrough of like, all right, I'm just choking down straight protein powder, or whatever, if you're trying to hit your macros. So, all right.
Right.
Let's wrap up with solution. And I think the first and foremost, the first step is willingness to trust other people.
Yeah.
That when they see you, they aren't going to abandon you. And you can have more trust in people probably who have proven themselves over and over again. But one of the greatest places to start, and this is going to sound crazy, is with a trusted stranger. And here's what I mean by that, right? But you see where I'm going with this.
Yep.
Therapist, physician, coach.
Yep.
Particularly someone who has proven themselves to have been a valued, trusted support for other human beings trying to do what you're trying to do.
Right.
So what if a stranger sees you? This is how I feel in many people that, and this is anecdotal. I'm not an expert on this in terms of data. I haven't seen the studies. I've seen some studies and I cannot quote back to you a single statistic. But the level of anxiety is much lower when you initially reveal yourself to a stranger, which is why sometimes it's just easier to talk to strangers. But finding a therapist, we're not sponsored by BetterHelp, but even just going to BetterHelp and signing up in a payment program you can afford to be able to begin talking to somebody, finding a trusted coach, finding a physician. I say physician because a lot of stuff people are dealing with is about, their health. A nutritionist, a trainer, this is an easy step to take where you don't feel like so much is on the line because you'll never talk to that person again if it goes south. You know what I mean? And they don't know you.
Right.
And so they don't have a perception in your own mind. They don't have a perception of who you are. To me, that's a great first step because it's the easiest first step. It's maybe not the most important to talk to them, but taking the first step is the most important thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're onto something there for sure. Which then makes me wonder, like, all right, so what is the hang up? why would it be easier to talk to a stranger as opposed to my best friend about stuff I'm dealing with?
I really think it comes
Because
down to I don't
my
want them
my
to think
hunch
less of me.
is that
I
you don't
want
really
them
have to
to hold
care.
me in high esteem and
Yeah,
continue to hold me in high esteem and continue to think I'm a great person.
exactly. Exactly. That's you nailed it. With talking to a stranger, you don't have to care because you're not invested in their lives. You don't
Right.
have to care what they think or how they
And you're
respond.
paying
It's
them.
just
You're paying them.
right. Exactly. Exactly.
And it
Uh,
is transactional. I mean, it goes beyond that. But on a certain level, the transactional aspect of it is a huge strength.
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
paying you to have an objective perspective and
Yeah.
help me. And you
Right.
have to. You have to help
Right.
me.
right. That's the deal we made. Yeah.
It's
Exactly.
beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I think there's definitely something to that for sure. I think another part of that is, in addition to that step, it's um, questioning self. It's like self reflection. Like why would I be fearful of my best friend's response of something that I'm struggling with, and why should I be fearful of the people I trust the most in how they would respond to whatever it is I'm going through?
Yeah.
You know?
This isn't pushback. There is a real sense of danger
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
because if you've been hiding long enough, you're going to probably have to reveal something that other person isn't going to like,
Right. Right.
and I'll go super simple. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I know that, we've been on this journey, we've been on this weight loss journey together. I've been, you know, lying about my weigh-ins, and I've been
Right.
sneaking M&Ms and Nutella at night.
Right. Right.
Right. But then you can take that as far as you want. You could take
Yeah.
that to business partners and been like, yeah, I haven't been stealing cash, but I've been spending it in not telling you about it and then trying to hide it on the books.
Right. Right. Yeah. And that right there is it. You've mentioned this before. We are communal beings. The fear of being cast out from the tribe is a deep seated down in our
Yeah.
DNA fear, and so yeah, I get it. Then it's like, all right, what kind of relationship do I have with this individual? Can whatever it is that I'm dealing with or going through or have been hiding, can the relationship withstand it? And that's just another conversation you got to have.
And I think with yourself first, what kind of person do I want to be? Reign supreme. Do I want to be the kind of person that's hiding stuff from the people closest to me all the time?
Right.
Listen, we all have
Right.
our stuff to hide. We all hide
Yeah.
stuff. That's
Yeah.
natural. It's really abnormal if you aren't. And I question, like, well, what kind of psychopathy is going on there? But
Right.
there is, you do have to answer, like, who do I want to be? And at the end of the day, can we accomplish the goals together?
Yeah.
Or can we have the life together we want to have if
Yeah.
I continue to hide this information?
Right.
All right, that horse isn't dead, but we're still beating it, and it's getting ready to lay down.
Mm-hmm.
How about second step or another step? You don't have to do these in this order. Another step would be, for sure, if the first one's asking for help, and then 1A is asking for help from a stranger and a professional, 1B might be asking for help from the people who are already set up in your life that want to help, want that give and take, that mutual exchange of I'll help you, you help me.
Yeah. Yes, that would definitely be a step. Be mindful of who you pick as that person.
100%.
Some folks will will just hype you up, even when they ought to like call you out. Um, and like my first thought is like, your mom. Yeah, maybe not everybody's mom, but
Your mom.
but God rest her soul. but um, but like there are some people in your lives that um, that will you can do no wrong, and they
Yeah,
won't
yeah,
call you on your bullshit, because they're, you're
yeah,
their baby boy or whatever, and so that might not be the best person. I would rather have somebody that like I genuinely trust, genuinely wants what's best for me, and not super interested in just making me feel good, if that makes
yeah.
sense.
We talked about this on our very first episode. Great allies will tell you the things you don't want to hear.
Right.
Even greater allies will do it in a way that's effective.
Yeah.
And if that means like a hard response or a nuanced response, that's them knowing you and what is most effective for you. But
Right.
yeah, 100%. Moving beyond that, you know, if you know you can't achieve the great thing without help, getting help sooner than later is
Right.
always advantageous 100% of the
100%.
time.
Yeah.
As if you can just let go of, I've got to prove myself that I can
Yeah.
do it on my own. If you can let go of that, and you know you need to let go of it, let go of it
Right.
now,
Right.
as opposed
Yeah.
to waiting.
And again, I go back to like, well, how do you do that, Brad? How do I let go of that? I think the question you have to ask yourself is, what is more important, achieving the thing I want to achieve, or proving everyone that I can do it myself? Because those are two different goals that are probably moving in two different directions. And ultimately,
Yeah.
if achieving that lofty goal, that you've been chasing after, if that is the most important, then yeah, reaching out for support and help early on is like, yeah, it's a no brainer.
Capital boom, all
Yeah.
caps.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And then making the adjustments you need to make in behavior
Right.
and continuing to seek support while you're doing
Yeah.
that, while you're making those adjustments until they
Yep.
become your daily non-negotiables or
Yeah.
habits, your routine, whatever that is. I
Yeah.
certainly know the steps. I have
Yeah.
not mastered these yet. I could
Yeah.
for sure. It's probably why it's one of my, pet topics, is because I'm still working on it, and I'll
Right.
forever, like, if anyone's under the illusion that you or I have it all figured out, like, that is a thick curtain of illusion that you're under. You're
Smoke and
not
mirrors.
you're not cold at night, man. You're covered by that blanket,
Yeah.
because we don't. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, implement those three things. Implement them right now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'll just say, if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't know where to start, reach out to Chris or I or both
Yeah.
of us. Just, you know,
Yeah.
either on our socials or our email addresses, and hit us up. And
Absolutely.
we'll, at the very least, have a pretty brief conversation to get some clarity on, all right, what are your next steps to reach out for help
Yeah.
from
100%. Yeah.
people in your life already, from us. If we're not the people for you, we'll let you know pretty quickly. But
For sure.
all right, Bro Chacho, anything, as always, anything you want to say to wrap up? I know you do.
No, you crushed it today, man. Great topic. I think this is
Aw.
something that we should probably revisit often, because those old habits of like, nah, I can do it by myself, they creep in, particularly if they've been behavioral patterns throughout your whole life. So, yeah, I guess my
Yeah.
final thought is, don't be afraid to let the people you trust know who you really are. and then move forward as far as you can.
All right, we'll see you all next week if I ever edit this and put it up on time. All right, buddy. I'll chat with you
Cool,
later.
man. Thanks for chilling.
Yeah, absolutely.